is breaking news on 2 News at 4:30.
Welcome back into 2 News at 4:30, where we continue to follow that breaking news this afternoon on the death of former Utah Jazz coach Frank Layden.
We want to welcome our former player, current Jazz broadcaster Thurl Bailey, who's joining us. Thank you for taking some time with us this afternoon. And Thurl, you played for Coach Layden for several seasons, so you know him just about as well as anybody. How did you feel when you got the word of what happened?
I think like a lot of people felt, well, Coach Frank Layden drafted me. He drafted me back in 1983 along with Bobby Hansen, who I was just communicating with. Frank was one of the first people I met when I arrived in Salt Lake City. And I was a little bit nervous coming in, just leaving college, coming to the NBA. I played for some serious coaches, but I figured at the next level it was going to be even more serious with a guy like Frank Layden at the helm. They hadn't won many games. And so the first time I met him, I know he cracked a joke that I just found hilarious. That was really the first introduction to him. He just put me at ease right away as my head coach. And I just appreciated him doing his homework. And he always told me, he said, look, I drafted you because you could play, but I knew what kind of person you were, and we wanted that here in the community. And so he had me then. He was a loyal guy. So, of course, when the news came down, I had just been with Frank, along with my broadcast partner, Craig Bolajak, a few months ago as he was recovering in the hospital. But it's a very sad day. It's a very sad day, but we're talking about a man who leaves a huge legacy. And I think one of the most important people in Jazz history to help keep this franchise here in Utah.
We keep hearing that over and over and over again from those who knew him really, really well. Thurl, you mentioned that he drafted you. Talk about, for people that might not understand, the relationship, the special relationship between a player and a coach. Probably not only important on the court, but also off the court. I mean, he really helped transcend the trajectory of your life.
He really did. And I think back in during that time, it wasn't very common for a head coach to have that kind of person. It was all business for the most part, but Frank had a way of helping us understand that it is business. We're getting paid to play, but it's not everything. And I remember a moment in LA when we got trumped by the Lakers and we're on the bus and the bus is quiet and Frank gets up from the front and walks back and he says, "Guys, look over there." That's guy, he kind of had that New York accent, and we looked over on our left side of the bus, and there were a row of homeless people, and we had just gotten beaten. And he basically said, "Look, it's a loss. We're going to get back to work, and we're going to get better, but it's not the end of the world. There are people out there who have it a lot worse than we do." And so he was amazing with his timing and understanding messaging to his players. Whether it was during a game coaching or whether it was away from the game, he was a master. He was a master at keeping the fans interested, even when the team wasn't doing very well in those years. The man did so much for this state and this Jazz community.
What were some of the lessons that you learned from him specifically to help improve your play time when you were out on the court?
That's a great question because he came to me at some point early in my career and he said to me, because I was the 7th pick in the first round, and obviously when you look at that, you're like, okay, this is a high draft pick. He's going to start on some team for most of his career. Well, Frank asked me if I would be willing to come off the bench. And when you hear that, it may first sound like a demotion. It kind of did for me. I know it did for a couple of guys that he asked that said no. But he came to me and told me the reasons why he wanted me to come off the bench, because we needed some scoring off the bench. And he basically said, look, it's not that important to me who starts, it's about who finishes. And so I committed. I committed to be a sixth man at that moment and played most of my career coming off the bench, understanding that I actually had an advantage when I came off the bench, and I had a really good career as a sixth man. And Frank taught me that. He taught me a lot of things about having humility and being able to do what I needed to do for the betterment of the team.
He taught you well. You're humble. You said you had a pretty good career. You had a great career. And our condolences to you on the passing of your coach. But thank you very much for spending a few minutes with us today to add some context and perspective on his life. Thank you again.
Thank you both.